Two friends share a joint for the first time. One melts into the couch, laughing at nothing, eventually wanders to the kitchen for snacks. The other sits frozen, heart racing, convinced the walls are watching him. Every sound feels like a hidden threat meant specifically for him. By morning, the first friend is sober and fine. The second is in a psychiatric ward describing voices that won't stop. His reality never quite solidifies again. Same substance, same dose, same night. But one of them was carrying a genetic variant he didn't know existed, a silent code written into his DNA that transformed THC from a recreational molecule into a psychiatric detonator. This isn't about handling your high poorly or having a bad trip. Specific gene variants turn your dopamine system into a loaded weapon. THC pulls the trigger. Today, we're isolating exactly which genetic variants create this vulnerability, how they sabotage your brain's reality filter, and why. For some people, one session flips a biological switch that never flips back. Let's get clear on what we're dealing with. The weed you can buy today isn't the same thing people smoked 30 years ago. THC concentrations jumped from 3 to 5% to routinely hitting 25 to 30% in commercial products. This isn't just a stronger version of the old experience, it's a different pharmacological beast entirely. One your brain's regulatory systems weren't built to handle. The epidemiological data doesn't leave much room for interpretation. Large-scale studies across multiple countries show a dose-dependent relationship between high-potency cannabis use and psychotic disorders. Daily users of high-potency products face psychosis risk increases up to 500% compared to non-users. The risk peaks when use starts during adolescence, while the prefrontal cortex is still developing. But most cannabis users, even heavy users of potent products, never experience psychosis. The risk concentrates in a specific genetic subset. People carrying particular gene variants they've probably never heard of. For them, cannabis can directly trigger schizophrenia in individuals whose genetics already prime them, pulling the illness out of latency years earlier than it might have surfaced otherwise. Maybe ever. Most people don't know they're vulnerable until it's too late. Think of your brain's endocannabinoid system as traffic control for neural signals. It keeps neurotransmitter release balanced. Not too loud, not too quiet. Your body makes its own cannabinoids. They're gentle, short-lived. They bind to receptors, deliver their message, and detach within seconds. THC is different. Its shape mimics your natural endocannabinoids well enough to dock into the same receptors, but that's where it stops playing nice. THC binds harder, much harder, flooding receptor sites across your hippocampus, amygdala, and prefrontal cortex. And it doesn't leave. It clings to those receptors, jamming up the regulatory machinery your brain uses to separate signal from noise. What happens next isn't a subtle shift. THC doesn't just dial things down, it breaks the dial. In people with certain genetic vulnerabilities, this loss of control sets up the exact conditions for dopamine dysregulation, the malfunction that turns ordinary thoughts into perceived threats and internal monologue into external voices. Your brain's traffic system collapses. The neurochemical chaos that follows is where psychosis starts. Dopamine isn't about pleasure. That's what most people think, but they've got the function wrong. Dopamine tags things as important. It's how your brain decides what to notice. The car cutting you off, where you left your keys, whether that person across the room is someone you know. When it works, the system matches importance to reality. A smoke alarm matters. The hum of the fridge doesn't. Your thoughts feel like yours. Voices outside your head sound like they're coming from outside your head. That's what keeps the world making sense. In psychosis, dopamine stops calibrating. Everything gets flagged. Shadows, a stranger's blank face, two unrelated things happening on the same day. Your brain starts seeing patterns where there aren't any and decides random noise means something. That's where delusions come from, where paranoia comes from. Not some vague mental breakdown, but a concrete failure in the system that sorts real from background static. THC doesn't gently tip this system in people with the wrong genes. It floods it. The signal drowns. Your brain can't tell which thoughts matter and which ones to ignore. The system that makes meaning breaks down, and reality comes apart. Two genes decide whether that dopamine flood washes through or breaks something permanently. COMT and AKT1. They aren't rare mutations, they're ordinary genetic variants, spread through the population the way different blood types are. But the specific combination you carry determines whether your brain can manage a THC-induced dopamine spike or gets overwhelmed by it. COMT makes the enzyme that clears excess dopamine from your prefrontal cortex. There are two main versions. The VAL variant creates a fast cleanup system that breaks down dopamine quickly. The MET variant, sometimes called the worrier gene, produces an enzyme that works about 40% slower. People with 2 copies of MET naturally run higher baseline dopamine, which helps with focus under normal conditions, but makes them more anxious when stressed. When THC triggers massive dopamine release, that difference matters. The VAL/VAL brain clears the excess in hours. The MET/MET brain can't keep up. Dopamine pools in areas where it should be tightly controlled, continuing to overstimulate salience circuits long after the high fades. AKT1 controls dopamine receptor sensitivity, basically the volume setting for how loudly your neurons respond to dopamine signals. Some common variants create hypersensitive receptors that amplify every dopamine molecule's effect. Combine a hypersensitive AKT1 variant with the slow COMT MET/MET cleanup system, and you've got the biological setup for psychosis. Dopamine flooding a system that can't clear it, screaming into receptors that hear whispers as shouts. Your genetic code wrote these specifications before you were born. THC just runs the program. THC enters your bloodstream. Within minutes, it crosses the blood-brain barrier and hijacks your endocannabinoid receptors. The regulatory system that normally keeps dopamine release controlled collapses. Dopamine floods your striatum and prefrontal cortex, far beyond what your brain experiences during intense natural rewards or stress. If you carry the AKT1 hypersensitivity variant, your dopamine receptors amplify the surge. Every molecule registers as an emergency level signal. Your brain's salience detector should whisper, "Pay attention." Instead, it screams like a fire alarm that won't stop. Random stimuli, a flickering shadow, a stranger's glance, a half-heard phrase suddenly carry unbearable significance. Your COMT MET/MET enzyme tries to clear the excess. It fails. Dopamine keeps pooling in the prefrontal cortex, the region responsible for distinguishing your internal thoughts from external reality. That boundary dissolves. Your brain can't tell whether the threatening voice is yours or someone else's, whether the conspiracy emerging in your thoughts is paranoia or actual perception. For someone with latent schizophrenia, the genetic architecture already present but dormant, this is the biological ignition. The dopamine storm activates the underlying disease process, potentially years before it would have surfaced naturally, if at all. The neural damage accumulates. The reality filter, once shattered, doesn't fully rebuild. Genetics loaded the gun. THC pulled the trigger. Your brain executes a program you never agreed to run. 3 things decide if you're at real risk. First is family history. If anyone in your family has had schizophrenia or psychotic episodes, your odds are already worse than average. Cannabis doesn't create the vulnerability. It trips what's already there. This is the clearest warning you can get without a genetic test. Second is when you start. Your prefrontal cortex keeps developing into your mid-20s. Use high THC products during adolescence, and you're dosing a brain that's still under construction. The dopamine problems we talked about earlier don't just scramble things temporarily in a young brain. They can mess with how it finishes developing. Wait until after 25 and your risk drops. Third is how much and how often daily use of 25 to 30% THC strains is nothing like occasional use of weaker stuff. Dose counts. Frequency counts. If you've got the wrong genetics and you're chronically flooding dopamine without giving your brain recovery time between sessions, you're stacking risk. We're not headed toward blanket bans. We're headed toward knowing more. Genetic screening for COMT and AKT1 variants already exists. Soon, you might be able to check your psychosis risk before you ever try it, turning the question from, "Can I legally do this?" into, "What does my DNA say about this?" You can't rewrite your genes, but you can stop gambling once you know what hand you're holding. Legalization made cannabis easier to get. It didn't change what happens when THC hits a brain that can't handle it. If you've got certain COMT or AKT1 variants, the dopamine response isn't manageable. It's a cascade your brain can't shut down. And once psychosis starts, there's no rewind button. If you're still here, thank you for being part of this journey. Subscribe to stay tuned for what's next.